We're ready. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the World Podcasting Federation. I am your host, Brian Hurston. With me, as always, my tag team partner, Jusef, the 51st Statesman Conesa.
I'm
How's
just
that? Pretty good?
I'm just flexing like the ultimate
Oh,
word
there's
whenever
so
he's
much
not
power
talking.
posing in like the Warrior versus Hogan, Warrior versus Rick Rude. The Warrior versus Rick Rude was uncomfortable. There's so much like flexing and oh, they're so sexy.
Whenever somebody else is talking and he's in the vicinity, he just
He's just like seething, yeah, and like he's always throwing in
the
like
fuck is wrong with you?
snorts and growls. You
Just
don't know who we're
pure
talking
cocaine
about.
energy.
Uh, I'm sorry if you didn't click on the link that had a picture on it. If you don't know what we're talking about, we're here talking about the Ultimate Warrior, a man who is on my misprinted shirt. Yes, that's right. This is WrestleMania 6, but it's got the wrong match on it. It should be Hogan, and it's weird. But you know
Yeah,
what? I
that's
probably
what you
paid
get
like
from buying.
$8. Yeah, I probably bought it from Meyer or something.
Yeah, you bought it off Timu.
I would never buy anything off Timu. I would never give
Yeah,
Timu my credit card information.
they already have it.
Have you? It's okay.
Yeah.
You did all right. Um, so yes, Yusuf and I are back. Welcome back to Flying Elbow Drop, a film. We're here talking about a very interesting documentary. The only time I can think of that WWE sanctioned a
I
full-on hit piece on someone. This is
I
a
feel like
the
I feel
wrestling
like they
equivalent of a
send out.
diss track, right?
Yeah, I feel like their production company sent out a old email and say like, "Hey, who's interested in sitting down and talking about the Ultimate Warrior?" And nobody replied. And then they follow up with like, "We're gonna talk shit about him. Who wants to join in?" And everybody in
And
the
then
company were like,
like
"Yes,
the reply alls came
yes,
back.
please, yes, please."
Yeah, this is like Vince McMahon at his peak public pettiness. I mean, I'm sure behind the scenes we all know he's an awful monster and all the things, but like this is like right out on Front Street, just a straight up like fuck this guy, and
Fuck this.
they
Yeah,
put money like like it's not cheap to probably produce one of these, and this is like the pre-streaming era. They didn't just like
yeah.
dump this on Peacock. This got like a full press DVD release. It's
That
wild.
they then buried, and
Yeah.
you can only find in porn sites like I
Right.
did.
Well, I got a crappy bootleg. I ordered a bootleg, so I do have a physical copy. Um, yeah, it's wild. They fully buried this. I don't know how soon after or anything, but obviously before eventually the reconciliation, which came it was
It
a
had to
little
be
late.
during the ramp up. Probably
Yeah.
like when they were talking in the behind the scenes and they were saying, um, I mean, knowing now what they say in the documentary, and we'll get to that eventually, he must have negotiated like, hey, if I'm gonna go and do the ceremony and
Yeah.
be inducted and do the appearances, because I think he appeared in a couple like Raw and
He definitely
other
came out.
things.
He did the Hall of Fame ceremony. He did, and then he appeared at Raw the next, like after
Yeah.
WrestleMania.
So
Um,
he probably negotiated like, you gotta bury that
Well, and I
motherfucker.
definitely know as far as because I watched a couple other things, I always like to try to supplement these DVDs with as much other information as I can get my hands on.
I did.
And you can definitely tell they do address they do the 2014 documentary right around the time of that of his Hall of Fame induction, and you can definitely tell that the self destruction documentary was like a sticking point for Warrior. Like that cemented that's when he dug his heels in and was like, you know what I mean? He got mad and like I'll never and like probably fought harder and sued more and like
It's so nice of you to use his legal name.
yeah. Well, I'm much more respectful than the people in this documentary.
Yes, they kept
So,
calling him James or
yeah,
Jim.
we should give maybe just a real quick rundown. If anybody doesn't know the Ultimate Warrior, real name Jim Hellwig. He started out as a bodybuilder slash chiropractor student. Um, then he teamed up with the guy who would become Sting, and they were in a tag
That's
team
so
called.
wild that
They
I
were in the
always forget that.
They were in a tag
I
team
always
called the
forget that.
Blade Runners, which was basically like a ripoff of the Road Warriors. They just had
Yes,
big muscle dudes with face paint on.
his face
Um,
paint.
yeah, and then they split up, and he went out on his own and became, at one of the smaller promotions, a guy called the Dingo Warrior,
The Dingo
which is
Warrior.
another one of those things that, like, there's stuff in this documentary where people shit on him justifiably, and then times when they're just taking pot shots. But I say they're right. The Dingo Warrior's stupid enough. You can legitimately make fun of that. It's very dumb. It's
So
not
dumb.
even like, if you wanted to be the, like,
What
you
does
could
that
have just
even
come up.
mean?
They came up. They were like, they talk about it. I can't remember which one I watched, but they're like, oh, we just thought a warrior, and then we'll come up and go, the I don't know, the jackal warrior, the hyena. Anything is better than dingo. Dingo is not the way.
The dingo ate my baby, and that's way before the dingo ate my baby shit. So I don't
That's
even
right.
know where he came up with that.
I think they probably thought it was something that people wouldn't recognize, that people didn't know about, and so it sounded like mysterious, I guess.
And he's not Australian, right? He's from
No, he's from like
California, I think it
California.
is.
No, well, no,
Yeah.
I think he grew up in Georgia, and then he came out. I think he lived in Georgia
From
first.
dude, that I'm dying to get that section to the parts unknown section that they did.
Oh, oh yeah. So anyway, he gets drafted up because of Vince McMahon's love of muscle men, and this dude had probably the most impressive physique of any professional
Body.
wrestler, even at the time, which is saying something because it was the time of steroids and bodies were
Yeah.
crazy. I noticed how thick his arms are, like all the way down to the wrist.
Yeah.
Like they're big, like tree trunks. Um,
He was so physically impressive that despite the fact that this documentary was 1000% so they could exercise their demons and the hate that they had for him,
mhm.
they could not refrain from mentioning his body like 20 fucking times in the beginning.
Oh yeah.
If you took a shot after every time they said body, like you would be dead, like
Because that was
alcohol
the
poisoning.
one good thing they could get anybody
Yeah,
to say about him, was that he had the look, that he had
the
like the
body.
body, the hair, you know, and so he gets called up to the big leagues. He gets to come up to the WWE, rebrands as the Ultimate Warrior, and honestly, and they talk about this a little bit in the Dark Side of the Ring, but like gets the kind of push that like no one ever gets. He's totally green, which is another thing they can't stop talking about, how green he is. Green is the word.
Yeah.
Um, he has no real wrestling skill. He never bothered to learn the business. He didn't have any interest in the business. And you find out through the documentary that that's like a lot of the old timers' big problem with him, is that he didn't have enough reverence for the business for them,
Yeah.
and they don't like that.
Well,
Um,
you know who got a similar push, but kind of rose to it. It was Vader. Um,
yeah, that's true.
yeah, Vader and
But
Bam
Vader
Bam.
even had more of a like like he had more history outside the WWE than
Yeah,
Warrior
that's
ever
true.
did. Warrior was like,
But Bam Bam came from rookie
that's
like
true.
him to be a tag team partner of Hulk.
Yeah, yeah, he actually, that's true. I guess I would say, but even he never got
No,
the
no, he never got to
full court
warrior
press all the
status.
way up to the title. You know what I mean?
No, no, no.
I think Warrior's the only one who like just mainline straight
Yeah.
right up to the very, very, very top, and like he just
And they don't learn their lessons because there's
they,
so many wrestlers that have the same, like, not obviously not so fast, but you clearly can tell, oh, because you're huge, you're gonna be at
yeah,
the top, kind of like the big Kali or stuff like that, where you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
fuck you, what are you trying to do? Like, he sucks. Why are you forcing him down my throat?
He's so limited what he can do physically, but like Vince just loves giant
He
men
loves big man, yeah,
so much. He loves like a big, whether it's a big freak body or a big tall dude or whatever, he loves that shit.
yeah.
So but yeah, he gets his big push, and then like over and over again he kind of like gets in his own way. His ego is too big, whatever, and then back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with the WWE for years and years and years.
It's
And
wild
then
how many times he got fired and
yeah,
Vince just like reluctantly, because I mean they didn't say it outright, because I mean they said that he was a big ticket draw, but he was such a action figure,
right, right. It was
like
all a
I
look. Like it
yes.
was, yeah, he was like a cartoon
I had
character
I
mixed
had
with a
a I
rock star.
Yes, I wasn't a big fan of him, but as a kid, him and I think I said it before, him and Doink were the
Oh
ones
yeah.
that I would play in the video game because they would look so cool in the video game.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I definitely his first run, I was still pretty big into it as a kid, and like him coming out as the big rival to Hulk and stuff, and the idea that the first time that you felt like somebody was on Hulk Hogan's really on Hulk Hogan's level,
yeah,
that part's all true. That all rang true to me as far as like what they were trying to accomplish with the Warrior. They did it. You know what I mean? So I was let's see. Oh, I want to talk about some of the people in this. We'll get into some of their different stories, but like,
there's so many of them.
who do you think is the biggest hater in this one?
Oh, well, no, okay. So there's a lot of haters, but the ones that didn't hold back a single word was Mean Gene. He was like legit, like fucking throwing bullets every single time that he appeared on screen,
Yeah,
and Ross. Like,
Jim Ross. Now, see, I think I both those guys are on near the top of my list, but number one hater for that I think is Bobby the Brain Heenan.
yo,
Like Bobby
yeah.
Heenan is just running my dude into the ground. He
But
hated this
oh
guy.
no, he hated him. But the thing is, like, they didn't use him as much as Gene and Ross, so
Yeah,
they were more consistently used. But the thing that I loved about Ross was he was being subtle. Like Gene was straight up saying like, "Oh, it stinked," and he didn't know what to do,
yeah,
and but Jim was, and in typical fashion, it was a short match for the Warrior.
yeah. I love that. I have it written down here. It was like it was all sizzle until the bell. And
Yeah,
then
and that's why you needed all the theatrics
he
because
was crediting the
once he
dude's
got to the
music. He's like it's the music, it's the look, it's everything except what he does in the ring.
yeah,
Like
like he just threw so much shade, but didn't outright say this fucking guy sucks. But if you hear him enough, you go like, damn, he really hates him.
yeah, yeah. We get into the parts unknown bit. They start talking about like the parts
No,
unknown thing.
before that, they somebody else catches a stray, and that's Hercules.
Oh
Because
yeah.
they made fun of Hercules as well. They're like two dumb men that don't know how to wrestle, and you put them together.
They said that Hercules was better, which is so funny. They're like, Hercules was a little bit better.
It was so fucking funny. But yeah, the parts unknown bit lasted so long, and
Well,
everybody made fun of it.
well, and I want. Speaking of people who shouldn't be throwing stones, is Chris Jericho because his whole improv about it sucked. I was like, good trying out your B material on here, Jericho.
Yeah,
This ain't this ain't it. You don't have it this time.
the only one that legit made me laugh was I don't remember who said it, but they said is he only says he's from parts unknown because he's so stupid he doesn't know where he's
He
from.
can't
I
remember
was
where
like,
he's from.
God
I think that might have
damn,
been a Bobby Heenan.
God
I
damn.
did love the montage of like the terrible promos though, like the
Yeah.
nonsensical promos. So good, like just rambling, insane, like just a stream of consciousness, and like always talking about blood in the veins and the and the
No, yeah, and
power, the
they
warrior.
closed the they closed the documentary saying that he's a college speaker now. And
Yeah,
Jim Ross says,
we can talk about when we get around to the end. We'll talk about that because they touch on that in the Dark Side of the Ring, and I'd love to talk a little bit more
okay,
about the unsurprising places he ended up right before he got his shining re-entry into the WWE.
okay, yeah,
Um, I liked. I want to talk. Speaking of Bobby Heenan, I want to talk about a little bit about the Weasel match. They talk about the Weasel match. Bobby Heenan had been a wrestler and he was a manager at the time, and he had this bit that he had done in these other promotions where he would like wrestle, and then the guy would put him into like a weasel, basically pajama suit, and then he would like wake up and be like, "Oh, what? I'm in it. Oh, I don't like this. I hate it, or whatever." And then people would
mm,
chant "Weasel, Weasel." It was a fun bit. So they were like, "We're going to recreate this in the WWE. We're going to use the Warrior." And this is one of those ones, and we, like I said, as we go, you tell me what you think, but like sometimes people have legitimate gripes, like he was dangerous in the ring because he was careless and he never
yeah,
learned enough to get good. Oh man, they show so many botched gorilla presses in this shit. Like he never dropped somebody clean in this move,
nope,
and you know he did it You know they had plenty footage of him doing it right, but they
Yep.
pick and choose just the
Yep.
ones where that look like shit.
Yeah,
At
because
least for this one, he
he
never gets the
never
full extent. And I mean, I know I've seen footage of him doing it, but like they were so like, careful to choose his worst ones, or one like the Hogan one where he's so exhausted because it's probably the longest match he's ever had because
yeah.
most of his matches lasted like 3 minutes, because he's gassed by the time he got to the ring. But
That
anyway,
had to be like one of the most awkward positions too, as like him and the one getting the press because he had to grab you by the balls,
yeah, he basically has to get
by
his hand like right up on your
right in
nuts.
the crotch in the area and then press you, which is on itself like fucking impressive. That
Yeah.
like most of those men are like what 220
Oh,
upward.
easy. On the smaller side, guys
Yeah,
like Bret Hart are like a 230.
yeah. So
Like
that on its own is like fucking impressive, but yeah, it's just like one of those. And then I started watching all the highlights, and my vague recollection was like I thought that was the finisher, but the
no, he
way that
does
they
like
show it is that
the splash, yeah,
the
the
yeah,
like
but kind of
shoulder
like the
block
it's
and then a
yeah
splash.
yeah
But anyway, the thing I wanted to say about the Bobby Heenan thing, and we can talk about it with other spots too, is like this feels like one where it really went off fine. Like I feel like he kind of did his part. Bobby Heenan just hated working with him. You know
yeah
what I mean? He just didn't like it, and he's complaining about it. But when you break down what actually happened, it's like the spot went off fine. He did his part.
yeah.
You know what I mean? He did what he
I
needed
think
to
it's
do.
the I think since it's all retroactive, since
Yeah.
they know what he became and the things that he did to other people and how he acted, like I guess that's him like just reassessing how he felt in the moment and then justifying his feelings now. Kind of like fuck this guy. Like
Yeah.
I shouldn't have put on the weasel outfit for this asshole
Right. It
type of
wasn't
thing.
where he wasn't good
Yeah,
enough for this bit. Yeah.
yeah.
Which is funny because come on,
It's just a weasel,
it's a
but
weasel costume, dude. So we do this. We they go through a couple of his like his feuds that kind of before he gets
the
the
Hogan.
title. The intercon well even before he gets the intercontinental title I guess maybe in between but either way the ravishing Rick Rude one we talked about a little bit with a lot of the pose down. It's all about the body, but they actually
Yeah,
talk about how Rick taught him a little bit and like actually helped him get a little bit better and like working with him was good. And then they talked about him working with Andre, which I thought was hilarious because it's like, yeah, damn, Andre was still wrestling that long, that much. We're like what, shoot, 3 or 4 years after WrestleMania 3, and he's still going. It's wild.
yeah.
But
Talking about Andre, Andre kind of wanted to kill Bam Bam. Not Bam Bam. Yeah, Bam Bam.
yeah, it was Bam Bam.
Uh,
Yeah,
Bam Bam talks about like how he was just fucking choking him for real and hitting him for real.
and the same type of thing, which I think he experienced with Warrior too, is like,
Yeah,
and what we talked about with a lot of the guys, they don't like when you're green and you
yeah.
got a big push too fast. They don't think
Yeah,
you paid if they don't think you paid your dues,
you're
they're gonna
fucked.
make you pay them now. Um, I think though, but I was like, honestly, the Warrior is like a perfect late career opponent for Andre the Giant because he can't do long matches
Shit,
either.
yeah, no.
You know what I mean? He can't stand those. So like, it's a perfect to do a quick match with the Warrior and get out. Like
Hmm.
that's right up. That should have been right up the alley. Um, so they work up to the big
WrestleMania.
rivalry, WrestleMania VI rivalry with the Hulk Hogan. He had been the Intercontinental Champion. Hogan was the World Champion. This is the first
Yeah,
time champion. First time two baby faces are basically going after each other, where there's not really a good guy, bad guy. It's just about like
yeah,
who's the best, who's the top.
yeah.
Um,
Because and they also show it like when he wins, like Hogan like actually lifts his arms and
yeah,
gives him the
they
title.
talk about it's like the only time in that 10-year Hulkamania run that he really lost clean to anybody. He really like that's the thing. You get
And he kicked out.
yeah, like
You
at the
know,
very like last
yeah, he
second.
didn't
Yeah,
want to leave it like
no,
actually it was just slightly late. He
yeah.
actually didn't like I was just he's such a fucking
But
egomaniac that
somebody
he
puts
couldn't
it like
actually
there's push, there's getting a push, and then there's coming into the WWE, getting to steamroll every big name on your way up to
yeah.
having a world championship match at WrestleMania with Hulk Hogan, where he puts you over like like a god. Like you can't really deny it. He had the silver platter handed to
Yeah.
him, and he
No,
was like. And the problem with him was he was like, "Yep, I do deserve all this,
Yeah.
and I should actually get a little more, maybe."
And arguably, like, I don't want to get too far ahead. And then he has one of the best, like, build-ups with Macho Man. So he
Yeah.
those 2 years for him were like golden.
Yeah, they get the title. He gets the title, and they talk about how he improved. They're like, he did get better because working with the best people in the world at what you do will make you better, even if you're
They
not trying to get better.
Yeah, they kept saying
But they
like he
show a
needed a babysitter in the ring. So if
they
you were good in
show
the ring, you can babysit him through a match, and that's so fucking wild. That
yeah.
they kept
Well, that's like
calling him
they
like
have
a
Ted
fucking
DiBiase's
retard.
on here, and
Sorry,
he's talking
I'll
about
bleep that out.
how no, it's fine. And Ted DiBiase's on here, and he's talking the same thing. He's like, as long as you handled everything, and basically you made sure the match went well. But during that run, they show a promo, and he was much better. His promo work got better. It was like more focused. He got he made a little bit of sense. And then they get into the Macho Man feud, and yeah, I think that's to me
Fucking hilarious.
better than honestly probably better than the Hulk feud. Like,
It was because of what they say. It was just
yeah,
two maniacs in a competition of who can moan the loudest, because essentially that's how they talk without shitting their pants. Like, the first one to shit their pants loses this battle. And they was just like, oh, it's so fucking hilarious.
I
It was so
love.
funny.
Plus, I love the way the Macho King would like wander off and still be talking. Like the interview's over
Yes.
and he just leaves, but he's like, "Oh yeah, and I'm gonna
Oh,
go there."
and I'm gonna.
It's
And
off screen.
Gene is like, okay, then, okay, thank you, Macho Man.
Yeah,
Fucking hilarious.
and that was it's funny because that Macho Man feud ended in a retirement match, and that's where Vince kind of forced Macho Man to retire and become a commentator, which is part of why he ended up leaving and going to WCW because
Yep.
he wanted to wrestle. He's like, no, I still have value. I don't want to retire. I want to keep going, and he was like forcing him out. So it's just,
Especially, that's around the time where he was like making a shit ton of money with like the snap into a slim jim.
oh yeah,
Like, why would you bench that guy when he has such a big endorsement and he's so recognizable to the normies? Like,
yeah.
it was a weird decision.
Um, So the next thing we get into is
It's Sergeant
Sergeant
Slaughter,
Slaughter and
who
the
is
whole
fighting back. Like, you can see him restraining himself every time he talked about him. Like in here where all the hate words,
yeah.
like, and he would go like, yeah, he was fine. Like,
Yeah, and I mean I would say he was pretty like he definitely didn't pull punches. He was, he was like, he was definitely negative too. Um but this all stemmed around the big like SummerSlam extortion plot where
yeah,
uh you know Ultimate Warrior decided that he wanted Hulk Hogan's contract. He's like, I'm as big as Hulk Hogan now. I want the same merchandising points he gets. I want to be making the same money as him, and blah 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 blah. And
and I agree with Vince in terms of, it's wild for me to say that, right? But there's a time and a place to ask for it, right?
right,
And
right,
not right before the match, and you're saying like, if you don't give it to me, I'm not walking out there.
yeah.
You're like, okay, this is kind of like not the correct way to
And
go
it
about
goes
it.
on through his career that like that was his biggest weapon was like no showing
Yeah,
shows was like the way he basically like threw his weight around. But Vince relents because it's SummerSlam and he has to get his main event going, and it goes off, and it was him
it's a
and was
tag
it
team.
I was gonna say it was a tag team. Yeah, that's right. Sergeant
So
Slaughter and
him and Hogan
at
and Sheik and
and yeah, General Adnan or Sheik and Slaughter, and then he comes backstage and legitimately gets fired. And I love in the Vince says it gave him pleasure, and you can see that genuine shitty Vince smile that basically inspired this documentary. And it's funny because I also watched the 2004 or the 2014 one where it's right after he died, and it's all very sentimental. And Vince loves to well up with crocodile tears. He's a pro, he does it, nobody does it better, he's always and talking about Warrior in there. And
yeah.
I cannot deny that they obviously had a special relationship because Vince took so many chances on Warrior. And
Yep.
it's like, sure,
I mean, he
part of
brought
it
him
was
back
that the
three
Warrior,
times.
yeah, part of it was that the Warrior made money, but also
Yep.
there's got to be something else there
I
because
mean, he said it right, in even in this hit piece, he even said like, there's another side to Jim. He's a very nice, funny, blah blah blah, charismatic
you
guy.
find out he had a pretty close relationship with the whole McMahon family in that 2014 one because he actually asked Linda McMahon to be the one who does his induction, and it's like they talk about how he used to come over to the house all the time and like hang out with the kids and stuff. And I was like, oh, see, that's all stuff I'd had no idea about. So it
Well,
makes a little bit of sense, but I still thought that the kind of like shitty smirk of like fuck him felt more genuine than the sadness of his
yeah,
death.
this documentary obviously it was to talk shit about him, and there was a lot of people that had a lot of gripes that they wanted to get off their chest, but it also feels like a warning shot, you know, like this was the biggest guy in
Yeah,
wrestling, and we destroyed him.
yeah.
Don't
And
try to be
if you
this
don't
guy.
toe the line,
Yeah.
we can bury you, and not just in the ring. Like
Yep. It really
that's
did feel that way.
yeah, and that's fair. And it's like we talked about with Beyond the Mat that was probably one of the last documentaries that WWE probably participated in that they didn't produce themselves. And that this definitely feels like that kind of in-house myth making that they love to do. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
like to
But
take
on the other
somebody's
side,
genuine story and kind of tweak it a little bit and make it a little more, and then put out a DVD about how their struggles or whatever, and this is right up that alley for sure.
the one that I didn't know about, I'm obviously like I'm not a huge fan of that era, so I've never like revisited most of it.
Yeah.
I'm more after, like, towards the end of Brett, the beginning of DX. That's
Leading
when
into the
I,
Attitude Era and Monday Night Wars
yeah.
and all that, yeah.
But the one that took me by surprise was the Godfather, Doctor
Come
Papa
on, yeah.
Papa Papa Shango
Papa
Shango.
Shango, yeah, he was like a voodoo doctor, yeah.
Yeah, Papa Shango putting curses on the Ultimate Warrior and him
He like they
bleeding.
poured the stuff in his mouth, or they do all the kind of he would like spit, and I did actually like where like he's doing his interview and the black shit started to come out of his
Yeah,
hairline. That was great. Like I
and
thought
then
that was a lot of fun.
Cut to Jim Ross. They had to do all those theatrics because as soon as they stepped on the ring, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
God
right.
damn, Jim.
Jim don't. Well, it's funny they brought back some of that supernatural stuff later on down the road when he does his run in WCW, where he's the guy like spooking Hulk Hogan with his like showing up in the mirror and some weird stuff. So they kind of almost harken back to that a little bit. Um, so he gets booted after SummerSlam, and this is when his ploy to change his name to Warrior. He's like, they own the rights to Warrior. I can't go out. I can't make any appearances. But if I change my legal name to Warrior, they can't stop me. And they make again. This is one of those situations where they're making fun of him, but like it's dumb, but it's not as dumb as not trying anything. You know what I mean? Like he tried something. He had an idea. He gave it a shot. He did.
Yeah,
He
but they
fought
didn't.
back in some way.
Yeah, but they didn't sell it that way though in the
Oh
documentary.
no,
In the
no.
documentary, they just sell it like he bought into his persona so much that he
Yeah,
became the warrior. He
yeah. He
became
was.
the Ultimate Warrior. And
Yeah,
then there was Mrs. Warrior and Little Warriors around
Little
him.
Warriors.
They were killing him, but yeah, it makes sense that he tried to do it the legal route, even though precedence is not, like, you clearly changed your name after you were fired, so I don't
Oh
know how
yeah,
that even fucking works in court. I was like, actually, I'm Warrior. I don't know why
yeah.
they're
I'm
trying to,
actually Warrior now. But again,
but
like even after all that, here comes Vince. A couple years later, Vince is like, what? Vince looked at a sheet and it was like, he still had the highest name recognition or he was still in the top 10. And Vince realized that he could make a few more bucks. So, boom, he lets him come back and have a second run. He's
yeah,
got the sleeveless trench coat this time. But you know
oh
what I
yeah,
noticed? I did have to say about Warrior, all his comebacks, all his runs, he always kept that body up. He always looked crazy. Like
Yeah.
he always
Well,
had.
they didn't appreciate his third body. They said that it wasn't it.
Oh,
That's
that's
when
right.
the
When he
rumors
had the
started.
little jumpsuit on, and Jericho's making
Yeah.
fun of him for wearing the like
Yeah.
bodysuit with the painted
Yeah.
on muscles. But he clearly got back into shape after that. You know what I mean? That was probably like a couple weeks when he first came back or something.
That's when they started with the rumors of like him being dead and it's a different person.
Because he had like a slightly different haircut. God, wrestling fans are so stupid. That's
I
why they
mean,
also. That's why
but
they
to be
also thought
fair,
the Renegade would work.
yes. To be fair, they did it with Doink. Doink was
Yeah,
like
but
three
Doink's
different
whole
people.
face was. I mean, like Doink, and nobody. I don't know. As ripped as you could have found a pretty ripped dude, but I don't know if you could have found an Ultimate Warrior ripped dude. That guy was insane.
That's why I didn't like your tweet about Zac Efron. Like, oh, Zac Efron is too ripped to be a wrestler. And I'm like,
He's a wrestler from the '70s, though.
yeah, but look at the brother, like the ultimate Van Von Erich.
Oh yeah,
He
yeah,
was
but that's not who Zac Efron was playing. Zac Efron was supposed to be the tall, skinny brother.
That's true. And then the
Yeah,
bear
Zac
dude,
Efron did have a Kerry Von Erich body. I'll give you that.
yeah, no, Kerry Von Erich was, and he didn't have a foot, and he was that jacked.
Yeah. Um. So when he gets his big comeback, his big WrestleMania match is against none other than Hunter Hearst Helmsley,
He came
and
in hot.
it's so funny because he is obviously by the time they make the 2014 one, he's Paul Levesque, president of the company, and he's still Triple H also. But they have a whole thing where Warrior's going up to his office and oh this that and the other and blah blah blah, friendly friendly friendly. And then I went because I watched that first, and then I'm watching this because I want that context. And yeah, he goes so hard in the paint against the Warrior. He
So
literally calls him the most unprofessional person he ever
yeah,
worked with.
he
Um,
ruined my experience of my first WrestleMania.
he calls him Dickwad, which is so
Dick
funny.
Watt, yeah.
He called him a Dickwad
And when he
in
came on screen, I
2005.
was yes. When he came on screen, I was like, God damn, Hunter is so old. Like because you don't think about him wrestling fucking Ultimate Warrior at
Yeah,
all. But yeah, he was so fucking angry. And then they played the match pretty much in its entirety.
yeah,
Like it
because it
was
was like a squash.
it was two
I
minutes.
never. Can you imagine? Okay, like what we know about Hunter now, and like how his character evolved and was protected and is seen. Can you
Yeah.
imagine somebody no selling a pedigree like that?
No, that was wild. When he
That
did
he
it,
jumped up.
he jumped up like nothing. Yeah. Um, I thought the pedigree was something he came up with when he transitioned out of Hunter Helms
Well,
Hemsley.
no, it has to do with being an aristocrat. The
Yes,
pedigree, you know.
yes. But yeah, he fucking just
Jumped up and he started doing his raise the roof like
fucking wild.
amazing.
And then he just he did the
He did
two
his three
ropes.
moves.
Yeah,
Clotheslines you. Then when you get up from the clothesline, he shoulder blocks you, and
and
then
then
he
the slam.
splashes you.
But did he throw him up? I don't think
Ah,
he did.
I don't remember if he did the press or not. He probably did.
'Cause that's his fourth move.
Honestly, it's proto Goldberg shit. The squash, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
that's what Goldberg was basically a clone of the Ultimate Warrior. He had the intense entrance. He came in, he did the squash, he did the scream, and he just didn't have the crazy promos, but he had all the other hallmarks of the Ultimate Warrior.
yeah, he was definitely a mix of that and Stone Cold because they really try to make him the Stone Cold
Well,
of
visually,
WCW.
he's Stone Cold, black
Yeah,
trunks, bald head, but his energy is Ultimate
yeah,
Warrior.
well, 100%. And his lack of wrestling ability.
His lack of in-ring ability. Talk
Yeah.
about, just on a side note, talk about a hater who will never give Bret Hart a chance to run down Goldberg, and he will
Oh,
never
a
miss the
thousand percent,
opportunity. I love it. It's so
a thousand
funny.
percent. He talks, and the other day he was talking shit about Vince as well. I was like, yeah, let the hitman talk.
Hell yeah, bury him, man.
Fuck him.
Put the sights on him, Bret. Now we get into one of my favorite guys. Love me, Jerry the King Lawler. What a fucking icon. Now I know kids out
Why?
there,
Why
kids
would
out
you
there
pair? Why would you pair those two?
Kids out there
Why?
only know announcer Jerry Lawler, so you might not know the King of Memphis like I do. but like
hairy chest,
the hairy chest and the hair
the
and the
gold teeth.
crown. Oh, and the chin strap beard. I
Yeah.
mean, I was big into Andy Kaufman when I was in high school, and like his whole thing with
Oh
Andy
yeah.
Kaufman is so iconic to me.
I
Um,
always loved that Jerry was like buff but not defined.
yeah,
So
he was like thick.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
thick,
yeah,
like thick. Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, it's such a weird pairing to do. It's King of the Ring, and they're gonna do Warrior versus Jerry Lawler for some reason.
Yes, for some fucking reason.
I loved that Jerry Lawler. At first, I loved that they shit on the art in the comic book and was like, "You should have had me do it." And then he's like, "I painted a picture," because Jerry Lawler is a really great artist. That's
I didn't get that angle. I was hand up. I
I
was
think it's
working
one of
and
those.
watching it.
I think it's one of those things that Jerry Lawler was just wanted people to know he's also an artist. So he did a painting because he does like sketches of wrestlers all the time and sells them, and he does the whole 9 yards.
But
Um,
he kept saying that the warrior ruined the angle. But I didn't understand the angle.
Well, and this was my thing too. This is another one of those where it just feels like sour grapes because I'm like
Yeah.
his big complaint is that he came out in a ball cap, and it's like that's pretty weak, dude. You're really reaching. Like that's not. I just
But
think
he
I
clearly
I
came
think
out and he was like, warrior. Kind of like selling the hat. He's like, QVC.
whoa.
What
Well,
the
yeah,
fuck?
it's just like maybe you don't want to admit that this angle didn't have legs to begin with, but you
Yeah.
know, like
He was giving him a painting, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I don't understand your angle, Jerry. Here,
yeah. I like the painting. That's fun.
that
That's
was a
cool.
pretty nice
That's
painting. Yeah,
great. I mean, whatever. And smash it over his head. That'll be fun. Whatever you do. But I just thought again one of those situations where there's plenty of legitimate criticisms about Warrior and the way he
yeah,
handled himself in the ring and the business side of it. But there's just some of these things that's so petty. It's just like these airing of petty grievances that aren't they don't really go anywhere. The height of that, the peak of that is he's only in it a couple times, but Ric Flair, who's a person who I
yeah.
don't think ever interacted or worked with
No,
Ultimate Warrior at all, and who literally you can tell they were interviewing him for something else, and they were
and
like,
they
"Hey,
asked him about
what do
him.
you think about the Ultimate Warrior?"
He's
And
like,
he just like
yeah,
shat all over him for no
yeah.
reason.
They showed him in the last scene, and I had forgotten that he was in the document. Like he appears
There's
to
literally
like a
points where he's like,
sandwich.
"Oh, they're telling him something." He's like, "Oh, I'd never heard that." Well, if that's true, I mean, that's just. But it's like you don't even know. They're just like
That was so weird.
that was like
But
the height of the pettiness.
you know, the other angle that was the other comment that was like extremely petty and coming from him, like I, it's obvious. Hulk Hogan when he said, and I put the belt on his shoulder and I walked away and I just wanted to say I told you so. And I was like, okay, you didn't give any context to this. You didn't prelude that you warned Vince that the guy was too
Yeah,
green. You just said it like you're just like, yeah, I told you so. Okay, and we're in the moment of the documentary that we don't know that he fucks everybody over. So you
right.
just like pre gave you a little bit of context. Like you didn't give me nothing. You just wanted to say, "I told you so." I just he was dying to say, "I told you so" to anybody
Um, so he ends up after that little run. They don't
with
sign him
Jerry.
again. They let him go. They don't sign him again. Um, that's then it's not right away because it's
No, it was
kind of
like
near
3 years.
it's near the tail end of the Monday Night Wars that they
Yeah,
bring him into WCW and he has his WCW run. Now I have to admit, I was fully like I was very locked into wrestling in this era, and I was big. I loved my WCW Nitro, and I love my NWO shit, and like the Warrior coming back worked on me in that era. Like I wasn't around for some of these other comebacks. Like I wasn't watching wrestling really when he fought Hunter and stuff like that. That was kind of in my downtime in between when I was younger and when I got into it in high school again. So like I
yeah,
missed a lot of that. So his comeback it felt very legitimate. I was like, this is great. Yeah, let's do like he was
and it was a
in
very
my
short run.
mind, I was just a little kid. So in my mind, I only remembered the hype. You know what I mean? I didn't remember like and I didn't know anything about who was good in the ring or bad in the ring when I watched Warrior at that age. I didn't know shit about
Yeah,
that. Like
but that was like it wasn't towards the end, right? Because I remember watching the end of WCW. I remember Rey
um
Mysterio. I remember
yeah,
Jericho,
it's
Booker
not I think it's
T.
before they changed the logo and stuff.
Yeah,
Is it I can't remember if it's before or after the Wolfpack split, though.
It might be after because a random ass dude hit him with the
That's
chair.
Horace. That was Hulk Hogan's nephew. Like, I don't know, his kayfabe nephew, Horace.
It
Um,
wasn't any of the main dudes,
no,
but they
but
showed that match,
I feel
dude.
like the but I feel like the Warrior stuff came before Goldberg, though.
That's what
And I
I'm
don't know.
saying.
I don't
Like
know the
the
timeline of it.
end,
I can't.
the end of WCW, the top guys were Booker
You know what?
T,
Actually,
Jericho.
might help. Our next episode might help us feel out this timeline a little bit
Yes,
better.
actually, we built this documentary run pretty well, and it wasn't that. I mean, we thought about it, but it
We're
wasn't
good.
like,
We're good at this.
yeah, it kind of everything kind of fits.
Yeah, I know. I knew
But
I had to
dude,
do something special to draw you back
yeah,
in.
no, yeah, get me and my creepy mustache back in here.
That's right.
Um,
You got your pedo mustache, and I
yeah.
got my right wing beard, and we're just gonna go.
Yeah.
I got I look like a doomsday prepper, and
You do. But I have heard multiple times people compare like a bad match to this bad match. Like I've heard people say, "Oh, it's the
as
worst
bad as
match
Halloween
since."
Havoc.
Yes, it's the worst match since blah blah blah. Right?
Again,
But
I guarantee you I was fully watching this match the night it happened.
I watching those highlights. Holy fuck, that was rough.
I will give it to Hulk. He cops to that being his fault, botching the flame
But
ball
that's
and
not the
stuff.
only thing that he botched. He botched a
No,
shit ton of other things, and the Warrior
both of them look
botched.
bad.
He's horrible. That's legitimately so fucking sad to watch.
And
Just
I don't
two.
remember. It was much like with the Bret Hart thing. Uh, WCW had him and didn't know what to do with him. Now, according to the doc here, they say that they did offer him a contract, and then he came back. The counteroffer, the money he wanted was astronomical, and it just made me
Yeah,
laugh thinking about. Imagine asking too much from WCW in that era when they were just throwing money at
throwing
people.
money.
Like some of the dudes in WCW had the sweetest contracts that ever existed in wrestling,
Yeah.
and so and
No, Bishop did not know how to run a
no,
company at
and you
all.
have to imagine that Warrior was just kind of like he did in WWE. It was like, well, whatever Nash, Hall, and Hogan are getting, I want their deal. I want that exact. And they were like, no, you don't draw. You ain't
Yeah.
getting that.
The Eric Bishop is also up there for the hater. It's just he just didn't appear in the documentary long enough to make a
Oh,
statement.
everybody. I mean, everybody in here. The only people I kind of give a pass to are the guys who were just like currently on the roster when the
Oh,
documentary was produced. Edge and Christian
Christian.
and Chris Jericho and those
Yeah.
guys. Like,
Chris Jericho was the only one that actually gave a full compliment to
I was
him.
gonna say, when they do the legacy portion coming up here at the very end. First of all, I wanted to say that Jim Ross 100% calls the religious turn. That's what I was gonna talk about later when you were saying about his motivational speaker shit.
Yeah.
In the Dark Side of the Ring, you find out that he was basically became a right wing reactionary dude, and he was like going out and giving these speeches and racist shit and homophobic shit. He's got all these online, and it's like that stuff all kind of got washed away when they brought him back. I mean, it didn't go away because nothing on the internet ever does,
Yeah.
but like it all kind of got swept under the rug, and then especially when he died, it was like, oh well, we can't bring it up, or I feel like even his critics were like, well, what's the point now? We're just gonna like drag him through the mud. He just had
Yeah.
a
You
big,
should.
powerful. Oh, absolutely, you should. He
Yeah.
was a huge
Fuck
piece of
that.
shit, and
Spit
he
on the
shouldn't.
grave too.
Well, and the thing is, it's like he was he was overrated. He never cared about the business. He was always out for himself. He got more chances than he ever deserved. He treated people bad up and down the way.
He hurt
And
people.
he hurt people, and in the end, like beyond that, he went on to become an even more terrible person in different ways. So it's like, as much as we talk about how this is like an out of character hit piece, it's not wrong. And like
No.
when I
And
compare this to
there are a shit ton of wrestlers that deserve this type of hit
oh
piece.
sure.
But yeah, fuck him.
Well, and
Honestly,
like I
fuck
said,
him.
and I watched the 2014 one, which came out right after he died, which is like your standard WWE,
I wonder
documentary.
why. Right? Oh, okay. I know why. Because you mentioned that he's so close to Vince and his family. That's pretty much why he got the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame call.
Yeah, exactly. I think Vince brought him back because he still had great name recognition. He knew he would get eyes on the Hall of
The
Fame. He would get
ceremony.
attention to that WrestleMania that year. And I think Vince. I think when he Vince
Especially
is
the
a bottom line
story.
kind of guy. He's like,
Yeah.
do I care enough about this feud, or do I care about the money I could make? Like,
Yeah, and it's the story that you can sell. You can
yeah,
sell, oh my
I
God,
have
it
to give
hasn't
them
been
credit.
here in years.
They acknowledged, like I said, in that 2014 documentary, they do acknowledge the thing about self destruction, the Ultimate Warrior, and now nobody comes right out and is like that was a bad idea. And Jim Ross, he's only in that 2014 one for like a minute, and all he says is basically like, "Yeah, I bet he was pretty mad about some of the stuff we said about it, but he never apologizes." Um, Jim Ross was one of the only guys who appeared in all three. He's in the Dark Side of the Ring
Yeah.
also. He's in all three of them.
He fucking
Um,
loves Dark Side of the Ring. He loves to talk about
oh yeah.
the only episode that he is angry as fuck to be in is the one, I don't know if you've seen it, the one about the plane
Oh
ride.
yeah, yeah. The plane ride from hell.
Because he's like, why are we bringing this up? Because
It's like
motherfucker, you were in the
embarrassing.
war, yeah, you
Yeah,
were in the war in charge, and you let this shit happen. He's like, they're a grown man. I can't control them. He was so angry about that episode. I bet he signed on for the season, and then when he saw that episode, he was like, "Fuck! Why did I sign on to this season?"
yeah. Um, the documentary ends with a little bit about his legacy, and it's literally
Legacy.
just a hater's last call. Just everybody get your
Yes.
kicks. Everybody
Roll
dig
call.
your heels in and get one last kick.
Roll call, and everybody
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
and that's when Ric Flair appeared again. He's like,
Ric Flair
he's
appears
just,
one more time to kind of drunkenly stumble out of frame.
he
um,
is, yeah.
but a couple
But the
things I did.
one thing that happened in that documentary that I didn't, um, I had to do some research, and then when I found out more info, it was interesting. They're saying like, oh, and he was gearing up for rivalry with Nails. I was like, who the
Mm,
fuck is Nails? And then I googled him, and he's a wrestler that
that was like a
got
real
into
convict.
and he got into a real altercation with Vince, and he started choking Vince in his office, and he was arrested, and then he started suing the company. That was like a shit show, and I was like, "What
Yeah,
the fuck?" Even Bret Hart talks about it in interviews. He was in the locker room getting changed, and he hears this commotion and people screaming. And it's like, "What the fuck is happening?" So yeah, Nails. I didn't know about him.
yeah. That was fun. A couple things I wanted to just touch on real quick from the Dark Side of the Ring that I thought were
Mm.
interesting. His his first wife, is in there, and she mentions that he had a severe anxiety disorder, and that he was very, and that he compensated that with the kind of like overconfidence and kind of grandstanding and stuff like that, which is again one
Jusef.
of those things that could be true, but it could also be her kind of like trying to salvage his,
Yeah,
because they did
justified.
it. She's his ex, but they'd had a good relationship and stuff. Um, Jake the Snake is in the Dark Side of the Ring. And I find it hard to believe that anything he says in it is true. He says he was supposed to have a program with Warrior and get the belt and be world champion. And then Warrior, fucked it up with Vince or was missing dates. The SummerSlam thing happened. He was supposed to start a program with him after the SummerSlam thing was supposed to close out the stuff with Sergeant Slaughter, and then he was supposed to start a program with Jake the Snake, and he got fired. And I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe that that was ever going to happen. I've never heard anybody else bring that up in any of the other stuff I watched. And then he talks about in the 2014 at the Hall of Fame thing. He's like, he was there, and he's like, and I was gonna, because he blamed him for fucking up his. He was like, and he talks about how he was gonna hit him, and I was gonna punch him. Then he came up and he came behind me and caught me off guard and said he was sorry and apologized and blah blah. I was like, I think every word out of your mouth is horseshit. Talk about a guy who loves to be on Dark Side of the Ring. Jake the Snake is
Yeah.
like, cannot. He's like, if you need me, I'll be there.
Hey man, they're paying him, and
Yeah,
money is hard to come by.
it just made me laugh that all the stuff he said couldn't be corroborated by anyone. You know what I mean? It was all stuff that you just have to take his word for it. The word of known liar, Jake the Snake Robber.
Yeah. Known manipulator and liar, Jake the Snake.
And then the one last thing I wanted to bring up was that was in Dark Side of the Ring was just when he was coming back for that run, the second run where he worked with Hunter and he worked with Jerry the King Lawler and he was good and the comic book was coming out. Apparently, he had a word to describe himself or describe his mantra, and it was destricity. And apparently, destrucity, sorry, destrucity
What?
was truth between destiny and reality. Destrucity. Oh, I don't know. I just thought that was really funny. he was part of his like because the comic book was like the lead into his motivational speaker thing, and I think he thought Death True City was going to be his like buzzword
Like
for
mantra.
his motivational speaker career, and that was going to be like the focus. So I don't know. I love when dumb guys think they're smart, and that was like a
Yes,
great idea. It was a great focal point of that. So
that's incredible.
um
No, it's truly one of the most interesting and baffling documentaries that I've ever seen
well, like I said,
because
because it's such a singular thing that exists,
yes,
that there's nothing really like it.
there's really nothing like it because like it's so petty and it costs so much money to do and in part not only did it cost money, they more than likely still had the rights to the Ultimate Warrior. They're probably still selling toys and still selling merch. And they're like, fuck him. We're going to talk so much shit about him. I don't care if the sales drop. I just really want to talk shit about him.
And like, I mean, I guess it's like it kind of speaks to the era it came out to. There's kind of that like a little bit of like meanness and nastiness to like media of that era. You know, this is the around the time where like not that we still don't do this, but we're like we love to see a celebrity fall. We love to run down Britney Spears in this
Yeah.
around this time, and so again they're like much like the WWE has always done, they're tapping into the zeitgeist. And they're like, well, what
Yeah.
do people like? People like, you know, they're like, what's our beyond the mat? People
Yeah.
like seeing people like fucked up stuff from behind the scenes. What do we got that we're willing to talk about? Well, we could throw fucking Warrior under the bus. Fuck him, right? Like,
That's true. That's a great point, actually.
um, so I was gonna say I don't know. I think we kind of did final thoughts when we were like, no, despite everything here, and despite the fact that maybe this is a little petty, the guy still sucked.
Yeah,
Like
he did.
he was
Yeah, he did.
not a good person. I don't like that. Like the uh the WWE's inspirational award that they give to like cancer kids and stuff is called the Warrior Award and stuff like that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah. They have the Warrior Award, and it's like it's like they give it to cancer kids, which is a great thing that they do. I mean, I love
Yeah.
all the work they do with that, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like, especially when you look into what he was doing, like literally right before he came back, and like the blogs and the fucking YouTube videos and just like hateful shit, and
Yeah.
definitely like the homophobia stuff's really kept calling it queering. I didn't like the way he used the word queering. I don't like that. So anyway, this is a weird thing, but this guy also deserved it. Fuck this guy.
Yeah, fuck him. Yeah, for sure.
He's
For
a
sure.
bad person. Lots of bad people in wrestling, and he was one of them. So,
Yeah, there's so many bad people. I mean, there's bad people in every organization, but yeah, like the I mean, the fact that Jimmy the Snuka type of people still exist
yep,
and are celebrated is
yeah.
nothing compared to being a homophobe and being a racist and still being celebrated. So it doesn't shock me, given the
Oh
fact
no, are you kidding?
who's running the company.
There's so many wrestlers that are just openly shitty MAGA dudes already. Like
Yeah.
this guy would, I mean, a Warrior would just fall right in line with those guys.
Oh,
This is not a
100%.
this ain't a deal breaker for most WWE fans.
I mean, look at the fucking pivot that Kane did. What he used to be one of my favorite wrestlers, and
Oh,
suddenly he's
mine
like
too.
fucking weird as shit.
Libertarian fucking weirdo now. Um, So we got a couple more of these. We're gonna come back. We're still doing it. We got more to do, man. I'm excited. I'm enjoying the shit out of this.
So I'm not gonna come back to the next episode unless you pay me.
Oh, you want to hold me hostage? Well, guess what? I'll bring in a replacement. You think you're irreplaceable? You're not. I'll
You're
bring
gonna
in
bring
Ralph Shannon.
somebody else with a mustache? I don't think so. There's nobody else with a mustache.
Nobody else. I don't know any. I don't know any sexy Puerto Rican guys with a
A
porn
sexy Puerto
stash.
Rican who drive a
So
white van
who drive what says
for
free candy on the side?
candy. No, dulces gratis. It's in Spanish. You know,
Oh yeah,
I'm
of
in
course.
Texas. Yeah,
Clearly,
I'm in
yeah, you're
Texas.
in Texas.
All right.
Well,
So,
thanks for joining me again, man, and I can't wait to do this again. I'm sure you're going to put our little stuff where people can find us on Twitter. On the I'm going to ride that thing. I can't wait. I just love watching Elon Musk drive that shit into the ground, and I love
yeah,
porn
fucking
bots
thing
responding to me all the time. Makes me feel
works
very
less
cool.
and less every day. I open it and nothing wants to fucking load. Oh,
Well,
fuck
I
off.
haven't like I've actually never I haven't updated since they switched, so I don't have X. I still have Twitter, but also like I can't see quote tweets and stuff. There's like so many things that are broken because I'm like
Yeah,
using the old unsupported format, but that's all right. It's a shit show anyway. I stay on it mostly just for my fly boys. We did it. Hey! Hold each other's hands up and hand each other the title.
what if we're over there? Let's do this
Oh,
one
we'll do
as
we'll
well,
do both
just in
sides just
case.
in case.
All right, bye.
See ya.